0 people on Earth think you should pay more than 10 times sales.
Now you're back on Earth again.
You nailed it. The aliens in Mars, their standard valuation metric is price to sales of 100. I solved it.
This podcast contains the arguably witty banter of two friends, Skippy and Doogles, that like to debate about investing. The content is intended to be entertaining and for informational purposes only, not investment advice. You should do your own research and consult a financial professional before using any of the information in this podcast, and especially before investing.
Welcome back to Skippy and Doogles Talk Investing. Throwing you off today because we don't have a movie quote. If you are upset, please send an email to skippydoogles@gmail.com and say, I demand a movie quote now.
I'm upset. This is not part of the pre-show meeting.
Well, I know, but the whole thing is that I didn't seem to get a lot of favorability from you for the past couple weeks.
Yeah, could you pause 1 second so I can email skippyanddoogles@gmail.com with my complaint?
I got a lot of heckling. I don't appreciate it.
That's right.
I don't appreciate it.
That's love. That means love from me. I don't know if you knew this.
That is true. We have 3 items for y'all today. We're going to do our first take on the SpaceX S1. SpaceX filed its S1 to go public, has been all around the internet sphere. As y'all know, we haven't dove too deep yet, but some high-level takeaways, I think, are worth discussing. Then we're going to discuss this tweet from someone that said they dumped MasterCard. I don't know. It sounds like they're wooking Penub in all the wrong places is all I have to say about that. So stay tuned for what we have to say there. And then we're going to wrap it up with the portfolio of the most profitable hedge fund manager right now, Chris Hohn. SpaceX. Have you done any SpaceXing?
I have. I know that the price of sales at the low end of the range is something like 67, and at the high end of the range could be closer to 100. And that they claim their total addressable market is something like $30 trillion. And both those things make me laugh.
When your TAM, total addressable market, is $30 trillion, why are you even looking at fundamentals, bro?
Because if I make up numbers, then they're made up numbers.
Let's discuss some of these numbers. I will say this. I think you've used Starlink before, correct?
I have a Starlink. I like it. It's great.
You have it? You have it? What do you mean you have it?
I have it. Like, I have a Starlink thing. I don't use it every day, but if I travel, I have access to a Starlink. It's great. It's $100 billion business, maybe. You know, like I'm throwing out random numbers. I don't want the listeners to think I've done a discounted cash flow on it or anything. It's cool. All things rockets are cool. All right, like don't paint me in the corner here.
I used Starlink for the first time this week.
Okay.
Never have I ever before. I'm on a flight, United flight, and it says if you are a Mileage Plus member, which I am, you can use Starlink for free. So usually it's $8 to get the internet, and the internet is, I would say, inconsistent at best. Is the way
it's
I
a
describe
hamster on a wheel in the back of the plane. That's
maybe
what it is.
Maybe if you're lucky, that's what you get. But this $0, and it was just the internet. I was so confused because I was like, free and Starlink, cool. It was amazing. Like YouTube worked perfectly. Well, I didn't even want to watch anything on YouTube. I just did that just to check to see what streaming looked like. Phenomenal. Starlink is the biggest business right now for SpaceX. It's about $11 billion that they bring in from that revenue. The space part of SpaceX, like the core part of SpaceX, is about $4 billion a year. And then you've got all the AI products, which includes XAI, Grok is up in there, X is in there, right? Twitter's in there. It's about, $3 billion. When we were just discussing it's actually not 30 trillion, we were exaggerating, the $22.7 trillion in enterprise applications, which leads up to 28.5 trillion, not quite 30. They aren't ridiculous. That part that they have as like the biggest potential part of the TAM is currently what is the smallest part of their business. That $3 billion.
Yes.
That's what they're saying is going to grow. What I found, the reason I want to dive into this, like in general, more into the S1 in general, because I'm just interested in space and all things and whatnot. But my first question that I wanted to get some read on, which is what I looked at the S1 for this week, is what can I learn about what they are saying about compute? That's really what I wanted to know. So here are my takeaways, my high-level takeaways around compute. One is they are saying, some of this will not be rocket science, but I just want to give you the full picture. So what they're saying is demand is off the chain. Demand has no bottleneck for demand here. What is going to be the bottleneck is power, right? We've discussed that on here before, but power is going to be the bottleneck. The thesis that they have is that if you can control launch, you can control satellites, you can build data centers, you have networking, chips, if you can have that full vertical integration and you get distribution through things like X, then you will be able to have a lower cost per token and you can own this entire market. That is and this is all high level, right? But that's the thesis behind why they have that $22.7 trillion TAM number in enterprise applications. That number is actually the total digital economy. This is not a specially calculated number that they have. They just looked at what the estimate is for the total digital economy and said, if you can do what we just said, that's your TAM. I'm going to pause because I said a lot of words, and then I'll get back to compute.
Well, just reset, because we just jumped in, assuming everyone follows SpaceX and markets. There's a planned IPO coming, and Doogles, refresh me, is it planned for June 12th? July 12th? June 12th.
June, yeah.
Okay. So in 3 to 4 weeks, there will be a SpaceX IPO. It will be one of the largest IPOs in history, unless investors completely throw a temper tantrum, which I would, but, that's fine. And then you just said something really telling. You said, for enterprise applications, they just threw the entire market at it. I don't spend my entire life calculating TAMs. It's not the most interesting thing for me, but that's a pretty broad brush, man.
Yeah.
They said the AI part of our business is related to anything that potentially uses a computer almost. And
it's all, if you take quote unquote white collar work, all of it, that's ours. Or that's what we're aiming for. That's our potential. That's what they're saying. Accurate.
All right. I'm going to read a sentence from there as one. Just one sentence. We believe we have identified the largest actionable total addressable market in human history.
Show me where to sign up. Show me where to sign up. That's all I need to know. There's another 260 pages for what reason?
No, but I'll try not to get hung up on this point. This is nonsensical. I'm in business. I run a business. So everyone that ever has run a business in the history of the world is part of my total addressable market. No, that's not how this works.
No, I'm glad you pulled us back. Thank you for doing that. Because this is the ultimate future story. The ultimate future story. The reason I stopped you where I just stopped you is because others could not tell the story that they are telling. And it's where I started to go when I was mentioning the thesis around compute.
No, what's missing from the TAM is that in 7,000 years, there's going to be colonies on Mars that have a total addressable market that's not yet identified. That's another 100 trillion, Doogles. I'm just saying, let's fully go to fantasy land. If we're in fantasy land, don't talk about the TAM today. Talk about the TAM for the Milky Way galaxy. I mean, come on now.
You just pointed out something that shows that they had restraint. They weren't trying to go to fantasy land.
They are, though.
Okay, so let me give you just a couple other things.
Yeah.
So Colossus, do you know what Colossus and Colossus 2 are?
Yes.
Okay. Colossus and Colossus 2 are their big old data centers that they built. Colossus came online in 122 days. Colossus 2 came online in 91 days. The industry benchmark for bringing on a data center of those sizes is about 2 years. This gets to their point around the vertical integration and what you can own. And the reason why they constrained, okay, their TAM to what they did is that the issue for earthly TAM, we're just talking about earthly TAM right now. The issue for earthly TAM is that terrestrial power upon this here Earth is a bottleneck. But if we can get all the things we're launching out to space, if we can use Mars and we can use asteroids to make it so that you don't need to rely upon AI terrestrial power for what AI needs here, which only SpaceX can do, of course we're going to win.
All right. I mentioned this 6 months back, but let's just do it again. So Elon is a genius. Elon is great at running businesses. Elon has created more wealth than maybe any sole human in history. There's so much good here. Data centers are hot right now. Data centers are tough to build on Earth for 3 reasons. Power, they generate a lot of heat, and permitting and dealing with, I don't know if you followed the data center that's supposed to happen in Utah that has people throwing milk at other people, etc. Like it's a whole thing. Theoretically, and some of the SpaceX technology basically does this today, according to a podcast I heard this week. Theoretically, you could put a a data center in space, not the whole building, just a rack of GPUs, basically, attached to solar panels in an orbit that always faces the sun. There's your free power.
There you go.
It's really cold in space. There's your free cooling. And if there's infrared, if there's a direct line of sight between those platforms, which you could if you line up the orbits, the conductivity is way faster too. You don't have to buy copper. You don't have to do all those things. I fully get it. It's not that hard of a concept to get. You theoretically can solve all your problems. And there's one company that launches 99% of all satellites that have ever been launched in the history of Earth, right? And it's this company. There's a compelling case. I can go to Fantasyland with this.
It's not even Fantasyland. You just laid it out clear.
Right? And so then, sure, you know who's laughing at Microsoft trying to get permitting for an Earth-based data center? My goodness, you guys are dumb. You're buying copper over here. You're cooling with Earth-based technologies. You guys are stupid. I get it. Maybe I'm just the wrong type of investor for this, because I'll let other people take the huge swing and a miss on an IPO. You know what will happen if SpaceX truly is going to make a meaningful dent in a $30 trillion TAM? I'll be able to follow that, because it will take a decade plus for them to actually put dollars in their bank account. That's what I care about. I want to see dollars in their bank account, not hypothetical hogwash of maybe if these 1,000 things happen perfectly, we might make some money. They don't even make money, Doogles.
I'm going to say you're double H in different terms. You know what the double H is?
No.
Hypothetical hogwash. So I'm going to take your double H and say in different terms, and tell me if this is part of what you're saying. If you look at the price that they are saying they're going to go public for, as you mentioned, different type of investor. That is not a Skippy type situation.
Yeah.
This is going to take a decade, 15 years, whatever, if it works. And theory says maybe it could if they keep executing the business and they maintain a moat. Maybe it could. You will have much better prices to get in. So why get in at this price? Is that
you know how many temper tantrums the market's going to have with this over the next 15 years? Even if it's the world's greatest business, it will come down in price. No doubt about it.
What they might try and do, and this also hits your thesis, what they might try and do is pull a different version of Amazon. I'm saying how Amazon, like if you take the Amazon from the late 90s up through, I'll call it 2010, right, or whatever, roughly, is they say Starlink is about to crush it. You said $100 billion business, just throwing out whatever number. Starlink's going to crush it. That's going to be our e-commerce engine, where we say, like, that's going to generate cash flows. That's going to be awesome sauce. But that's not what we're concerned about. Yes, it's capital intensive, what we're really trying to do. Yes, we're going to run at negative profit margins, of course, because this stuff takes investment. And that's probably the story they're trying to tell for a while. Now, the reason I say that aligns even what you're just saying is Amazon stock got hit by like 90% at some point in there.
Yep.
We'll see. We don't know. I'll give out this CapEx number in case you missed this, because this is a make Skippy do the eye roll type situation. So SpaceX spent $12.7 billion. Let's call it $13 billion in CapEx. AI, 2025, just in the AI stuff. Q1 of 2026 was $8 billion. That run rate is quite insane. Of course, you're about to go public. Is what I'm saying with that.
And for the followers who might not get what he's saying there, they need money. The reason to go public is to get some money. That doesn't even bother me. If you are going around bragging about building Colossus 2 in 92 days, you want to build Colossus 3 in 90 days, and you need money for that. I get that.
Yeah. Let's go back to some of the other numbers, because that's true. And if you're looking at that in the abstract, 11 billion, 4 billion, 3 billion, $18 billion roughly. Okay? Revenue. All right. The part of the revenue that they're spending this CapEx on was 3 billion. If their current run rate goes out through the year, you're talking about $30 billion. And that's just linear. Who knows? That's just linear. $30 billion that you're spending on the $3 billion part of your business. That's not, we need money.
Yeah, I think you're trying to pick a fight or something. Like, duh.
Yes.
So he hates the OpenAI guys. He's going to sell he's already assigned his extra compute to Anthropic, so Anthropic can crush OpenAI. He doesn't care about $27 billion or whatever numbers Doogles is going to make up over there. He doesn't care. It's like, this could be a fun revenge plot. There's another reason why I would not invest in IPO, and I'm going to be fired up if the index providers try and put my money there, but that's a whole other topic that maybe we'll touch on briefly.
Yeah, you will own SpaceX indirectly.
And I'm gonna build my own direct indexing that excludes SpaceX for at least the next 5 years.
You're gonna have Tesla. You're gonna have SpaceX. You're gonna love your life.
I used to own Twitter in the old OG Jack Dorsey days. I mean, so
yeah. So you basically you're the number one investor, is what you're trying to tell me.
Okay. Again, let's make sure we just cover it at a high level for folks that don't cover this as closely as we might. Even though I've tried to avoid this like the plague, because I knew you were going to talk my ear off of it. So the IPO, June 12th, 3 to 4 weeks away, is rumored for, now, Doogles, I've seen anywhere between like 1.3 trillion to 2 trillion as rumored launch point. Do you have any newer details on that?
No. In my head, I just have 1.5, because it's always been around that range.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 1.5, I should have pulled the number, but that puts you somewhere around like the top 10, top 15 largest companies in the world by market cap.
1.5 trillion would put you just above Berkshire Hathaway in the top 10. It would knock Berkshire off the top 10, so you'd be number 10.
Okay. So 1.5 trillion would put you as one of the 10 most valuable companies in the world with 18, did you say 18 billion in total revenues currently?
Yeah, give or take it.
So to give you some idea of what total revenues might look like for Berkshire Hathaway, it's 415 billion, just slightly different.
And like $300 billion in cash.
Yeah, that's a great point, right?
That's it.
Meta, which owns some incredible assets, does going on 200 billion in revenue. Anyway, my point here is this is crazy. This is a crazy valuation. And the way index providers work, the way it worked in the quaint old days is you're supposed to IPO and be the 1,000th or 3,000th biggest company in the world. And then you grow your way up. And you do that by, again, actually putting money in your bank account. What SpaceX is trying to do, because we might be in a bubble today, because it's Elon, because of all these crazy factors, is just skip the line and say, I'm one of the top 10 companies in the world, and I should get all the free money that comes with being the top 10
That's right.
companies in the world.
That's right.
And I just would argue that's crazy, because I don't want to participate in your speculative bubble.
Here's how crazy this is to you. I'm going to tell you how crazy this is to you.
Okay.
If you take that $1.5 trillion and the stock drops by 90%, so now you have a $150 billion company.
Yes.
This is rounding, so ignore but I just want to do it for exact math. Then you'd have about a 10 price to sales ratio.
I know.
Which you think is crazy. So if the stock drops by 90%, it would make you vomit. As a potential
which
investment.
Everyone thinks is crazy. No one thinks.
No, not everyone.
Pay. No one. 0 people on Earth think you should pay more than 10 times sales.
Now you're back on Earth again.
You nailed it. The aliens in Mars, they're standard valuation metric is price to sales of 100. This is solved it for me. Thank you, Doogles, for all those facts. Let's talk about more poor investor behavior. There's a viral tweet going around of someone who says effectively, MasterCard is a world-class business. It's so great. It does 175 billion transactions per year. It has 60% operating margins. It's a toll booth on the entire economy. This is the perfect business that everyone wants to own.
Oh, beautiful. Love it.
And then it says, but when I compare it to performance of some of the best performing companies currently, it's there's a 39% gap. It's underperforming crazy, and I can't handle this anymore. So guess what I did? I sold my MasterCard. And I'm going to go chase the high momentum stocks that are currently expensive, and this is the world's greatest thing. Speaking of making me want to vomit, okay, there's so many things wrong with this in my eyes. One is, like, what's the performance? If you talk trading stocks with your dentist, what's he going to tell you? Well, Jones Chase performance, buy low, sell high, et cetera, et cetera. All these cliches, right? Mm-hmm. This is the absolute worst thing to do. It's not about MasterCard, right? But if you find a company that you believe in, that you think can outperform for extended periods of time, let me break it to you. Every one of those companies will underperform the stock market for long periods of time. That's what's hard about investing, right? If you are a person that has to meet or exceed the benchmark, you should buy the benchmark and go live your life, right? Because to have conviction to say, I'm doing something different than the benchmark that will work out over decades. That's why a company like MasterCard in this example, you would be buying it right now when it's down 14% year to date and 14% in the last 12 months, and the S&P 500 is up 25% during that same time. This is investing, dude. Like, if you want to be an active investor, if you want to find real names, and we've said this on the show 1,000 times, that's probably not for you. But if it is, this is the worst case performance or decision that you can make. And then you write it up as if you're preaching about it.
Here's the thing with takes like this is that the take that's put out here is that at a high level, it can be easy to agree with. Like thematically, it can be easy to agree with. Namely, if I told you this, if I said you have deep conviction on something and that thing has just not played out, what do you do? And what he's saying is, I've got this, I'll use the word thesis just so I can quote something. He's got this thesis. He's like, and the thesis isn't working. At some point, you just got to admit that you were wrong. That is easy to agree with. Now, but if I tie that back into the rest of kind of what he's saying is, he also kind of says, no, but I'm actually right. It's just that I'm not right now. And therefore I should give up. And that's where it becomes so messy. Here's what I'm going to quote. Never sell unless the thesis breaks. Sometimes the thesis is fine. The stock just isn't performing at all. Even on a longer time frame, that's enough. I assume longer, his short time frame is 1 year. Longer means 1 year, 1 day. I don't know what longer means here because MasterCard has done plenty of performance over a longer time frame.
What's so broken about this is what he fails to mention, he or she. MasterCard is a great business.
I'm just going to say this level of nonsense, this is a he.
I knew you were going to say that. MasterCard is great business, but what happened to MasterCard is it became a consensus great business. PEs went to 50 plus. The multiple got crazy. Now the business has still performed. Revenues, profits are up in, let's just say, in the past 5 or 10 years, very impressively. But it's not trading at a multiple of 50 anymore. It's trading at a multiple of 25. Now, you can argue that the multiple of 25 is still too expensive. You could totally do that, and that could be a great reason to sell. But you're the one that bought it at a multiple of 50, and now you're complaining about that multiple compression. That's your mistake, is all I'm saying, right? So you either bought it at a multiple of 50, said this is a great business that will eventually grow out. It will grow to support that multiple. That means your time horizon has to be long, has to be 10, 15 years plus. This is in between land where you either didn't understand what the company was when you bought it, how crazy the valuation was because people revere this business so much.
Yep.
It's just backwards. Just don't do this, people. If you're going to have heartburn about the S&P 500, again, potentially in bubble times, outperforming your stock picks, buy the S&P 500. Otherwise, this is what you're signing up for. You're signing up for a great name that is potentially a great investment over 20 years, outperforming the stock market for a 1-year period or a 5-year period. Like, this is what happens. This is the entire name of the game.
It is, I'm gonna use absolute language here. It is impossible to beat the stock market over extended periods of time, which I'm going to say is 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, by having this mentality. It is very possible to beat the stock market over shorter time frames, which I'm calling 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, by doing this. And if in the successful version of this, the successful version of this is that you beat the stock market over 1, 2, 3 year time periods, and you get crushed over 10, 20, 30 year time periods. Your choice.
I hate to quote Buffett, but right, I mean, if you like to buy hamburgers in your house, you buy more when they go on sale at the grocery store. Paraphrasing. If you thought MasterCard was so great 3 years ago when you bought it, and it's down 14%, while the internal metrics are up, you should buy some more, right? This is not the time to unload the thing. It's the exact wrong behavior. I can be done with it.
And let's just stick on the Buffett train here and go to his good friend Charlie Munger. The first rule of compounding: never interrupt it unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. Should we go to the third topic?
We should. So the FT had a profile of Chris Hohn that I liked. Doogles said, and I quote, no, I can't quote it now, that you don't want to have a beer with this guy. Something along those lines.
I believe my quote was, I'm now adding this human to my list of humans that I have no interest in hanging out with.
There we go. I don't know that the profile is great, interesting. The thing I like about Chris is his picks, his stock picks. I think they're fascinating.
And this goes to, that's nothing to do with, my statement has nothing to do with his ability to do his job well. Or why does he want to hang out with me? He doesn't. I'm on his list of humans already.
So, runs a hedge fund in London, gives a lot of money to charity, which I love. And the reason the FT wrote this profile is because by gross dollars made, his hedge fund made more money than anyone else last year. Again, what does this mean to the dude we just laughed at? It means he'll probably underperform in 2026 because that's how these things work. All right. He's had a slower start to the year. He's not concerned about it because he's actually a good investor and he understands these things. But if it's okay with you, you're welcome to touch on anything else from the profile. But I'd just like to talk a little bit about his portfolio.
Yep.
Okay. So one, he uses leverage, which listeners will know I'm not a huge fan of, but let me explain a little bit as to why he's allowed to use a little leverage. Generally, his portfolio breaks into 5 areas: aerospace, infrastructure, ratings agencies, that's Moody's and S&P Global, payments, it's Visa, and then he has some tech names: Alphabet,
Google,
Microsoft, although I think he may have exited the Microsoft position. All of his investing themes basically break down to finding monopolies or oligopolies, duopolies that have pricing power.
That is that's a hard thing to say, what you just went through there. I'm impressed.
Failed it. Okay, so the major theme with aerospace, I mean, I've looked at these names. They're not for me necessarily, but is that generally there's not new entrants in the space. Like in the past 50 years, no one has really started making aircraft engines. It's a highly technical, highly challenging thing to do.
Yep.
It's effectively a monopoly.
Yep.
Maybe a duopoly. And you can talk about GE and a few other providers that make aircraft engines, and the aircrafts alone are basically Boeing or Airbus worldwide, right?
Yep.
It's very interesting space. On the infrastructure side, this is funny. I own several of these names and was not aware that Chris even held these names, but he has these big infrastructure providers that own 99% of all the airports in Spain, that collect a toll on every ticket that lands, right?
Yep.
Then own all the retail space. There's a company that owns effectively all the toll roads in France. A company that owns toll roads in the most important road in Toronto and North Carolina and all these other things. And in a lot of cases, they run 50 to 99 lease terms on these assets. Like, one of his providers gets a 49% stake in the new terminal at JFK Airport in New York City. Talk about a protected asset. Like, there's no new airport being built for the New York metropolitan area, right? And if you get a 49-year lease on that to operate it, talk about pricing power. Anyway, I'll allow you guys to dig deep into these names if you want, research recommendations, but very interesting stuff. I own Canadian National Railway. He owns that. He also owns Canadian Pacific Kansas City, which is the only railway that connects Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. Like, there's no one's building these rail lines, is my point. I don't know if I'm doing a great job of articulating it. Let me pause.
Talk dirty to me. When you say these types of just sexy names, I hear toll booth, I hear rail. Oh, man, it's fantastic. One thing I do want to say, I can't remember if you mentioned that he's concentrated or not. Did you talk about he's concentrated or no?
No, but go ahead, dive into that.
So that's another thing that makes it difficult to invest outside of an index, especially when you're concentrated, because you really have to have, going back to the conversation around a MasterCard, you got to have conviction, like real conviction. So GE, that you mentioned, the GE Aerospace, is 30% of his portfolio. Visa is 20% of his portfolio. So two names that he has trillions of dollars in, trillions upon trillions of dollars in, are not that I'm just exaggerating.
Yes.
But it's 50% of his portfolio. Actually, between the two of them, it is about a little over $20 billion that he has in those names. Half of his portfolio is in two names. He only owns 12, 13 stocks, something like that, total.
It's more when you because the names I just mentioned in infrastructure are non-U.S., so the F-13 requirements are slightly different, so not all of them show up. But yeah, it's less than 20 names, highly concentrated. Again, I said I'd get back to the leverage point, right? If you own all the toll roads in France and all the airports in Spain being the second most popular travel destination in the world, France is the first, right? Are you comfortable taking out a little leverage? Because that's a fairly predictable asset, right? Like, where I kick myself is some of these infrastructure names were absolutely incredible deals at the depths of COVID, right? It was like a once in 100-year event where revenue dried up and you knew it was coming back. I mean, the world was ending or it was coming back, right?
Yeah.
That's when he got into a fair amount of these names. I won't bore people with the other things, but he owns both S&P and Moody's. They do 95% of all the institutional-based ratings. Like, right? They're not getting replaced. They're not going anywhere. Does that mean they're like a deal right now? No. But if you have his philosophy and plan on holding them for 20 years, you're going to do great. You mentioned Visa. The tech names are interesting. I'm not going to spend much time on it. It's a fascinating portfolio, like one of my favorites, to be honest. And as I read this, I was dying, being like, wait, I didn't think anyone else knew about this Spanish airport provider that I like, you know? Fun for me on that front.
Going back to how hard it is to invest like this point, people pay him because he can hold these stocks. I'm just going to sit with that. It's not, yes, obviously he gets paid to pick them. Like that's a thing. He obviously gets paid to pick them. But holding on to this portfolio for long periods of time, humans just can't do. Like, that guy is selling MasterCard while all this other stuff is happening, while SpaceX is going public, while all this is occurring. And you're like, yeah, I'm gonna make some engines for a little while, and that's gonna be a third of my portfolio, and I'm gonna have a Spanish like airport toll situation going on. Like, this is impossible to hold. You pay him just to hold the stocks because you could not on your own.
The contrast is perfect. The guy that maybe correctly identified MasterCard as a great company that didn't have the fortitude to hold it. He underperforms the market.
Exactly.
Chris might have he might own the exact same stocks, but he actually holds it. His typical holding period is 8 years. People like to say Buffett holds stocks forever, blah, blah, blah. But when you look at his portfolio, that's not what happens. He turns over his portfolio fairly rapidly, and a few names stay, potentially because he's on the board, right? Chris actually holds things for 8 years.
Yeah.
It's an impressive portfolio.
It's fun.
But
it's very impressive.
This is speak my own book, I think. Also, let me say this. He will underperform in 2026. Fairly confident. He might underperform in 2027 as well. Again, that's what happens when you're the most profitable hedge fund in the world. That's part of it. The other thing is, because these names are some type of monopoly, usually, they aren't cheap. A lot of these are PEs of the 30s or 40s, multiple compression will happen to him. He'll probably hold and purchase more. That's what he's done in the past.
So to your point there, they, in this FT piece, go back to inception, it looks like, and looking at his annual returns, net annual returns, so after fees, relative to the world index, so MSCI World Index. And I won't go year by year, but what I'll say qualitatively here is that he does not always outperform, although he outperforms the market a good amount of the time. Typically, when he is outperformed, he crushes the market. And when he underperforms it by like a little bit. So like when things are good, he's much better. When things aren't as good, he's a little worse. And like that is that delta. There are a couple of years that doesn't play out. Looks like in 2009, when the market came roaring back, he didn't. But otherwise, like that's kind of over long periods of time. That's great. Those percentage points, which for him, it looks like are anywhere between 5 to like 20 absolute percentage points of outperformance, will add up over many, many years.
Absolutely. And the first 4 years he launched his fund, he significantly outperformed. And so basically, for those who don't know, that means for the next 50 years, his fund will show outperformance. Right? If you do incredibly well the first, you almost can't do better than he did the first 4 years of his fund. That establishes his track record now. You could zoom in on any 5-year period and see a relatively lackluster performance. This goes back to our MasterCard point. Things don't perform all the time. You have to zoom out. So that's it. We'll link to the FT piece if you want to check it out, or if you just want to dive into his 13Fs. There's just some super interesting names in there.
Very true. You got anything else?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. You for tuning in. SkippyDoogles@gmail.com is where you can email us if you have questions, thoughts, any listener mail. SkippyDoogles.com for all your Skippy Doogles needs. And if you want to become a premium subscriber, you get the show early. You get some hot tips sometimes from us, research recommendations. SkippyDoogles.supercast.com.